Go. Okay, the reason I had you guys do this bell ringer today is we're going to do just part of the next section, the next chapter, so 1.1, and we're going to be graphing equations. We're going to start by graphing equations from XY charts, which is what you did for the bell ringer, is making an XY chart. It's just not in that chart. And then we're going to find X and Y intercepts, and we're going to do this using calculators. So I'm going to show you all this, but the bell ringer today, everybody seemed to be able to do this because you've all done this before. You found Y when X was equal to -4, -2, and 0. So when we plug 4 in here, 4 times 3 is 12 plus 1, 13. When you plug -2 in, -2 times 3 is -6, plus 1 is -5, and 0 is 1. So what you did for the bell ringer was essentially make an X and Y chart, and that's what we're going to start with today. So we're going to look at graphs with X and Y charts. We're not going to spend a lot of time. In fact, I only gave you one of this because this is really old school algebra. So we're just looking at shapes of graphs today and X and Y intercepts. And mainly, my main goal for today is have you guys get used to putting graphs in your graphing calculator and tracing for X and Y intercepts from that. So really, we're practicing the calculator more than the algebra. So, and that's okay. Okay, so for example, what we're going to look at is something like, I'm not going to do the first example. I'm going to do the second example. If I give you y is equal to x squared minus 2. Some of you guys might remember what the graph of a parabola is. But today you don't have to. Today we're going to plug in points and plot points and connect the dots and come up with the graph. So a good rule of thumb, you're going to choose your x's. Okay, so these can be anything. You're going to choose these. They can be any number you want them to be. A good rule of thumb is let's pick a couple negative, a 0, and a couple positive, just so you can kind of see what's happening on both sides. So I'll say -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. I'm going to pick easy numbers. So when I plug -2 into this equation, I have -2 squared minus 2. What's -2 quantity squared? 4 minus 2 is 2. When I plug -1 in, I'm going to have -1 squared minus 2. -1 squared is 1. What's 1 minus 2? -1. When I plug in 0, what do we get? -2. And what are we going to get when we plug in 1 and 2? Yeah, -1. And then 2? 2. So all we did was what we did for the bell ringer there. We didn't do any new math. We just plugged in x's and we got our y values. So now we're going to plot these points to actually see what the shape of the graph is. So the first point I'm plotting is -2, 2. So I'm going to go over here to -2 and go up to 2. Yeah, that's right. -2 up to 2. Put a dot. And I'm going to go -1, -1. So -1, -1. Put a dot. I'm going to go 0 down to -2. It's right here. And then I have 1, -1, and then 2, 2. So you might remember that this is the smiley face graph. But today, did you have to know what the shape of the graph is? No. You had to know what we did for the bell ringer, which was plug in an X and get a Y. And then you can just plot your points. These are just points on your graph. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns? Easy enough? Plotting, connecting dots. It's an exciting day. Okay, for the next part, I want you guys to grab a calculator. Grab your calculator real quick. It needs to be a graphing calculator. If you have a calculator, you can use it, but make sure it's a graphing one.
Yeah, mine's not a graphing one. I wish.
I'm taking a long guess.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Amy does this. Did you guys have a house last night?
I want to make sure we all know how to plug this in correctly. So here is my calculator. Let me clear this. Okay, everybody's calculator screen looks just like mine. And we're going to plug in an equation to graph. I'm showing this like it's the first time you're doing this because not a lot of teachers teach this. Some of you may know it, some of you may not. So just follow along. You're going to go up here. Look at my cursor. This says y equals. This is where you're going to put your equation. Okay, you may already have equations in there and you can delete those out of there. So y equals. Okay, everybody with me?
Yep.
Okay, so our equation is x cubed plus 1. The x button you use is right underneath mode. I'm hovering over it right now, right next to my alpha button. So you press that and it's going to call up x, and that just means some variable x. We want to raise it to the third power. Anytime you want to raise it to a power, this underneath clear, this little, they call it a carrot top, I don't know, like a house top looking thing. If you press that, it'll put it up into the exponent. And I want the third power.
Wait, you want the third power?
Yeah, because it's x cubed plus 1.
Oh, we're doing a new one. Okay.
Yeah.
And you just do plus one?
Then you have to hit the right button because it's once you hit that carrot top, it's going to stay up in the exponent until you hit the right button to come back down. So we're going to hit, I'm just going to hit this right button right here. And it goes back down to the normal land. And then you have plus 1. So plus 1. So make sure everybody's looks like mine. Make sure your exponent is the only thing in the exponent. The 3 is the only thing in the exponent. Okay, are we good?
Yep.
Okay, what do you suppose we're going to press to graph the equation?
Enter. Or graph. That sounds like a graph.
Yeah, probably. Second and then graph.
How about just graph?
Oh, okay.
Just graph.
Graph?
I'm
Just
doing
graph.
it.
Let's do it. Just graph. Our windows might be off from each other, so let's just don't freak out if yours does not look like mine. I can fix you. So is there anybody who doesn't look like mine?
I wish I knew how to do this and not freak out.
Everybody good? Okay, so here's what we're talking about today with our next part of our lesson. The x and the y intercepts. They are exactly what they sound. The x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis, and the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. So when we're dealing with this, I'm going to use my, since I'm recording. When we're dealing with this point right here where I have my cursor would be what? The y-intercept, because it's where it's crossing the y-axis. So if I said find the y-intercept, you would say it is the point 0, 1, because it's where it's crossing the y-axis. And then the x-intercept is right here, where it's crossing the x, which is negative 1, 0. Negative 1, 0. So when you find this, all you're going to do, there's 2 ways you can do this. This one you can just look at it and see. No big deal. Let's say it's not directly on one of the little tick marks. I can hit this button here. Where is it? I can't read these up here. Is that trace right there?
Yeah.
Okay, so right next to it, you're going to hit the word trace, and you get this little, like, I don't know, flashy thing, and it'll trace along the line. So if you ever need to go right on, you'll see that at the bottom of your screen, it tells you what point it's at. And it just traces along the line. So this is how I'm gonna, and sometimes I can't get it directly on, and that's okay.
So the Y is the one that goes up and down.
The Y is the one that goes up and down now. Yep.
How do you get it directly on?
Well, this one, you can always pick out what X you want it to jump to. So I just typed -1, enter, and it jumps to it. But you guys are gonna, today you're gonna go, and when you have these, I think you have about 5 of these problems, where you're gonna type them in and then hit trace to find the X and Y intercepts. Just guesstimate it.
So can you go over that again? I didn't understand how you got like when you find the Y intercept and the X intercept. Graphing was like really hard for me.
Okay, so are you asking for trace or just
No, just
how
like
you?
in general. Your
Okay.
finger was kind of over, so I couldn't see you guys.
So we have the Y-axis, can you see this? The Y-axis and the X-axis. So the Y-intercept is gonna be wherever this blue graph is crossing the Y-axis. And then the X-intercept is wherever the blue graph is crossing the X-axis.
So you would go, it would be 0, -1 for the X.
X comes first in our point, so it'd be -1, 0.
1, 0.
Yep. But
And
this would be
0,
0, 1. Yeah. And I'm okay if you just say Y-intercept equals 1, X-intercept equals -1 for right now. But start thinking of it like a point. Okay? Are we good with that? All right, so let me give you guys a handful of problems to work on. What time are we done here today? It's Wednesday, 24. Oh yeah, you've got 20 minutes, so you have plenty of time to get this done in class.
Are we turning this in or just going over it?
We will be going over it, but we're going to add on to it tomorrow. I'm going to teach you something new tomorrow.
Yeah. My favorite memory.
Did you paint your chicken's toes? Yeah.
Hey, what?
You painted your chicken's toes?
Yeah. Hey, you guys, one thing, this first part, it says find 1 through 4, says find if the point is on, actually, you know what? Let's just start with 5. I'll make it easy today. It's Wednesday.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, I know. You should. Very kind. All right. Get working on this today because tomorrow we've got a new lesson we're adding to it.